give Annie a lift halfway to the camp. He also gives her a lift into the truck too, doesn't he?
He does. Both hands.
He palms her butt cheek and just like.
And donuts. We sell donuts.
Hey everybody, welcome to Blood and Donuts. I am Tony.
And I'm Chris. What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Here at the Blood and Donuts podcast, we will start by sharing an overview, facts, and our first impressions. Then we will give you our donut rating before we go into a scene-by-scene discussion that is full of spoilers. But don't worry, we'll let you know before we do that. And Chris, go ahead and tell them how that donut rating works.
So we rate our movies on a 1 through 13 donut scale. A 1 through 4 is terrible. We're not going to recommend that to you. 5 through 8 is mid-range. It's worth a rent if you have time. It's not terrible, but it's not great. A 9 through 12 is great. Definitely check out a 9 through 12 film. And Tony, a 13, Baker's Dozens here. That's pretty rare. It would be a masterpiece of a horror film and possibly one of the best of all time.
Friday the 13th. I need to make sure I'm not saying that so redneck-like. Friday.
Oh, Friday.
Friday the 13th is a 1980 American independent slasher film produced and directed by Sean Cunningham. Its plot follows a group of teenage camp counselors who are murdered one by one by an unknown killer while they are attempting to reopen an abandoned summer camp with a tragic past. It's cursed.
And they're all doomed. This is the most, cliche slasher horror trope. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is like the gold standard of those slasher films from the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that what Friday the 13th is known for? I mean, when you get a Friday the 13th movie, you are looking for all of the tropes. Like Friday the 13th, you know what you're getting. You know what I mean? You put it in and
it's the same recipe every time, I think. And, we're just going to focus on this one, the original, but it definitely is. And even the director and the producer, they were like, yeah, we ripped off a bunch of movies.
I could sell that. And Sean called me up and said, Halloween is making incredible money at the box office. Let's rip it off. That is keeping it real.
Here's what we're going to do.
We ripped off Halloween. I mean, they ripped off all of them.
Absolutely. This prompted by the success of John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978. Cunningham, he put out an advertisement to sell this film in Variety in 1979. All he had was that name. He was like, oh, I have Friday the 13th. So he put out an article in Variety. He said, I like this name. And he said, it's going to be the scariest movie ever. It's going to come out next year. And then it just kind of, this is where he got all of his funding.
It really hinges on the advertising and the marketing. Because he was getting that money before he even started.
Yeah.
He was, he hadn't even begun producing or anything. And he was getting all this funding and stuff because it was catchy and it looked like it was going to be something big. And a few big people backed it. And that was all he needed.
Yeah, I didn't know that there was a bidding war over the finished product, Paramount and I think Universal. I would have to look that up again, but somebody got the rights here locally, and then another company got the rights to do it internationally. So that they knew it was going to be a success, and teenagers were just going to love this thing.
Yeah, and that's what they geared it towards too, as teenagers.
$59 million is what it made. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
On a $550,000 budget, it grossed nearly $60 million. That's nuts, man.
Yeah.
Victor Miller.
And they were originally going to call it Camp Blood. That was going to be the movie name, but they changed it, thankfully.
But Friday the 13th, it really doesn't really play into the movie that much. Camp Blood actually makes a little bit more sense than, I guess it is Friday the 13th. There is one small conversation in this movie where they're driving up there. They're like, man, and it's Friday the 13th. And that's the whole thing. You know what I mean? The whole movie is on that. But I don't think any of the other movies even acknowledge the fact that it's Friday the 13th.
Probably not. No, 12 movies later and stuff,
Yes.
and it's just there's one reference in the first movie about it.
Yeah, he goes, I think it's a full moon. It's a full moon and it's Friday the 13th. But he was more enamored by the fact that it was a full moon. He goes, man, when it's a full moon, people start acting crazy. You know? It's more like this film should be called Full Moon.
Right. What a weird name, but man, it did spawn. It spawned what 12 movies and several video games.
Crazy, iconic, man, iconic. That POV shot. Obviously, that POV shot was used a lot in Halloween, especially in the beginning when he's a child. But this one really, it took that POV first person where you're in the killer's shoes and you're kind of seeing the camera. This one took it to a new level. I mean, oftentimes you're watching the teenagers jump off the dock in this water and you are looking at them behind the trees. Very voyeurism, you know, that kind of, it's really cool. I don't know. I really love revisiting this and kind of seeing where all of that got its start. Cinematography is great.
Yeah, and the music is fantastic too, man. That score, I mean, it puts it up there with a Nightmare on Elm Street and a Halloween. Even the music itself, it rivals those soundtracks at least.
Harry Manfredini, I hope I said that right. He did the soundtrack. Yes, you're right. It is so iconic, and you got Tom Savini with the practical effects on this.
Yeah, and they use the music some to, heighten the tension because some of those kills were off screen. So they used that orchestral string instruments and that would let you know that, hey, the killer's here. And the practical effects, fantastic. There's a few fun facts, both pre-spoiler and post-spoiler. We'll talk about them later, that are really fun.
They filmed this at this Camp Crystal Lake is obviously a fake camp, but they filmed this at a real camp called Camp Nobi Bosco in New Jersey, which is still in operation today. So I want to go on a field trip and go to Camp. I hope I'm saying that right. Nobi Bosco.
That's probably right. That sounds right. I know. And that's in New Jersey. That's cool. And they use mostly New York stage actors for the teens. Kevin Bacon, he was in Animal House previously, but he was like waiting tables in New York before he got this role.
Oh, that's cool. And soon would do Footloose a couple years later.
Oh, yeah.
And
He's renowned now.
Yeah. That's crazy. Crystal Lake, that wooden sign that you see when they're driving up to the camp. I love that so much. I want that sign so bad. I would put it right here on the wall. How cool is that? I just love that. I love that. And like this inspired, like you said, this along with Halloween, which came out 2 years prior, this made the slasher genre. You know what I mean? This inspired Sleepaway Camp. This inspired New Year's Evil, which came out that same year, 1980. I mean, like there was just a mad rush of just cheesy 80s slasher movies that came out right after this. And so many were inspired by this movie.
Yeah, Slumber Party 7, all the Slumber Party movies, the Sleepaway Camps, and it's so there's even been a few pretty good fan-made films that are just really independent based off of this story, and they're pretty well done.
Yeah. UK and other countries upon its release was several scenes cut for graphic violence.
Wow. Which ones? The two in the beginning where they were, I don't know.
There was a few.
Half of them were off screen.
This is tame compared to Future and what they put out today. This is tame.
It's hard to believe that they censored stuff, but different cultures and countries, whatever.
Paramount Pictures acquired the film for domestic here in the United States, and Warner Brothers is the one who did the international distribution rights. I didn't even know they split those up like that. So that was just weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. Betsy Palmer starring in this film. She was Mrs. Voorhies. I think she did a wonderful job.
Yeah, she got on set like 10 days, the last 10 days of shooting, right?
Yes.
And she was paid $10,000 because she wanted a car that would cost that much. I forget the name of the car.
Phone rang, and my agent said, "How would you like to do a movie?" I said, "Great, that'll pay for the car that I want to buy." And he said, "Well, now there's just one other thing I have to tell you." He said, "It's a horror film." And I said, "Oh."
Hated the script, but then she grew to love it later on.
Yeah. After it made her a star. I mean, come on.
What monster could have done this?
And I said, oh, nobody is ever going to see this. It will come and it will go, and I'll have my Scirocco.
Apparently her car died like a couple weeks prior, and then her agent was like, I have a movie. It's going to, $10,000. You want to do it? It's a horror film, which apparently if you're an accomplished actress and they ask you to do a horror film, you're like, you scoff at it,
Yeah.
You go,
I would.
Yeah, I would too.
But that reminds me of like Donald Pleasance. He wasn't on set for long and it had like a little bit of money, but the impact that they made, I mean, I would say Donald Pleasance more so than
definitely
Betsy here. But they had kind of the same where they're only on set for a few days because they're pretty big names, but they do their job and get out of there, and it makes a good impact.
It does. Yeah. Do you have any more facts for this?
No, that was the last one, man.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get into my rating, my donut rating. Here we go. Friday the 13th is iconic, and along with Halloween, responsible for the slasher craze that would spawn so many horror classics. I love the camera POV shots from the killer's perspective. Oftentimes, you're viewing the movie from behind some trees, some gas tanks, windows even. It's clever. It is a clever whodunit with psycho-type twist on the end where, and I'm not going to read that part. I love Tom Savini's practical effects. I mean, heads going flying off or arrows through the bed and neck. The iconic and Harry Manfredini's soundtrack. The end scene on the lake is one of the most iconic horror scenes, jump scares of all time. But now for some of my cons. This movie is a bit boring at times and quite tame by today's standards for horror. The teenagers' dialogue and scenes of them just existing at the camp just kind of drag on. There's some very boring kills that just they're very simple stab wounds and a couple off-camera kills as well. I found myself laughing at the fight with Ms. Voorhies at the end. Some of the pimp slaps are great and hilarious. Crotch shot, the hilarious fallback, still like that. Still an iconic slasher film. You have to see it and respect it if you call yourself a horror fan. But I believe that there's better additions, even amongst the sequels in this franchise. I give this a 9 out of 13.
Fantastic and spot on. So, this is a bit long-winded, so here we go.
Go for it.
In the horror genre, Jason Voorhees is a mainstay mascot, and the franchise itself could be considered, one of the pillars of horror, spawning 12 movies, multiple video games, but this film must be judged on its own. Fun practical effects, great music, and campy lines make this a standard classic. The pacing is terrible. Some of the acting is not great, and a few needless scenes make this movie longer than it needs to be. I'm going to also give this a 9 out of 13. If you're listening to this or watching this, you've already seen this movie, but if you're in our younger audience, go out and enjoy it because it contains all the roots and cliche horror that you love today. I just don't think it's as good as the other beacons such as Halloween with Michael Myers, Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy, or even Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Leatherface. But it does deserve to be in the elite category with a 9 out of 13 for Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like it's a great movie, and again, like you said, if you're a kid, you haven't seen this yet, you will go back and watch this undoubtedly, and you'd be like, oh, so that's where they got that. That's where that came from. This is grassroots stuff. This is stuff being invented on the fly. It is so cool. It's like watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, watching Psycho, watching Halloween. It's classic. But by today's standards, it could be a little yawn every now and then. I mean, but there is some great practical effects, and you see a good foundation for a great franchise here, and a good setup for Jason Voorhees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with that end scene, which we're going to talk about in our scene by scene spoiler review.
Hey, how about we spoil this thing, Tony?
In a brief prologue set in 1958, two summer camp counselors at Camp Crystal Lake named Barry and Claudette sneak away from a campfire sing-along to have sex. Before they can completely undress, an unseen assailant sneaks into the room and murders both of them.
Ooh. And they were flashing some serious eyes at each other
Man.
before they ran off together. Jessica was looking at me the same way, and I was like, knock it off. I'm trying to watch this movie. I'm doing my second job here.
Yes.
Enough
of that. It was like a 1950s little, like there's just like a sing along with an acoustic guitar, and she
like
was
a
just
Christian song,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, and they're just like, I need you now. But yeah, they didn't get far. I mean, they went upstairs and they were killed pretty quickly.
Yeah, he was backing off. He's like, we weren't doing anything, man.
Yes, and so like this is 1958. Remind me, when did the Jason incident happen?
So Jason drowned in 57.
Oh, okay, and this is the year
and then
after.
a year later, where she murders two. Oh, I'm sorry, this off-screen monster murders two
whoever it is,
people.
Yes,
whoever it is,
murders
two camp counselors.
Man, so poor Jason Voorhies. This is in the background. You got Jason Voorhies. He's just at Camp Crystal Lake, 1957, and apparently the camp counselors were more into each other than they were into watching these children have fun. And poor Jason Voorhies drowned on the lake. Ugh.
Yeah.
Man.
It's terrible.
It is, and in the later sequels, if I remember correctly, he was bullied and all kinds of stuff, and there was a lot of things that these counselors let slide. Not in this movie. This is me remembering to the future or whatever. But apparently,
we can use the franchise as a whole to piece together all the plot points in this movie.
At this point, we just know that he drowned, and and it was because the counselors weren't paying attention. So somebody,
he was such a sweet boy.
Just a sweet boy.
Poor sweet boy.
Sweet boy.
Now it's present day, Friday, June 13th. A young woman named Annie enters a small diner and asks for directions to Camp Crystal Lake. A strange old man named Ralph reacts to the news of the camp's reopening by warning Annie, they're all doomed. Enos, was it Enos? What is it? A truck driver?
Enos,
is that his name?
Enos.
He agrees to give Annie a lift halfway to the camp. He also gives her a lift into the truck too, doesn't he?
He does. Both hands.
He palms her butt cheek and just like, I was like,
he had to get leverage.
Hey, that was the 80s, man. If you yes, you could ride with people. You could hitchhike, but expect the driver of that truck to palm your butt and help you get into the truck that way.
I think when we were watching it and then the truck turned the corner, I said, so is this going to be ass or grass? Like, I was just trying to riff on it a little bit, but yeah.
Oh, gosh, so funny. He warns her about the camp, informing her that a boy drowned in Crystal Lake, 1957. A little later, Annie hitches a ride and gets picked up by an unseen driver in a Jeep. Annie becomes concerned, and she leaps from the moving vehicle when the driver fails to stop, fleeing into the woods. The unseen driver chases her into the woods and slits her throat with a Bowie knife.
Ooh, a David Bowie knife, damn. So Annie's actress actually did her own stunt there where she did the old tuck and roll out of the Jeep. Did you see that?
Yeah, it looked pretty good. And so she really broke her ankle in real life too. So
right. Yeah.
Probably.
I was telling Jessica, I was like, I'm pretty sure like if it's not just falling off, you've got enough adrenaline to like run from whatever it is that you're facing there. But I mean, she must have been in some serious pain. That must have been a high ankle sprain.
Imagine 1980. It's like this cheap slasher movie, and they're like, "So you're like, if you want your $50, I need you to jump out of this Jeep." But like, this wasn't a huge franchise or anything. They were just like, "Yeah, we're gonna need you to jump out of the Jeep."
Listen, honey, Pizza Hut's catering today, and they're here, and we're ready to go eat lunch. So do this tuck and roll, and you'll get some pizza.
Yeah, you'll be fine. There's leaves and grass down there, okay? That's hilarious. So anyway, like, what's funny is Enos, the truck driver, he makes fun of the strange old man Ralph. He's like that guy. What is it? And then Enos proceeds to do the same thing that the strange old man was doing in the truck. He's like,
Right.
quit the job, just go back home. And she's like, what are you talking about? No, I need this job. She's like, just quit, just quit.
And she's like, not you too. She has like the most flowery voice.
The dial. She's just like sitting there with like,
yeah.
stop it. She should be fearing the guy who just palmed her butt to get her in the truck, you know?
You would think. It was different in the 80s.
So she gets throat slit, and that looks really good, actually, the throat slit right there.
It does, yeah. They put like a blood sac in her throat or something and put some whatever makeup over top of it, and then they did that. I watched a little bit of the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Dang. Where's
Pretty
that?
cool.
YouTube?
Yeah.
Blood sacks, huh?
Always on YouTube, man.
Blood sacks. Other counselors, Ned, Jack, Bill, Marcy, Alice, and Brenda, are refurbishing the cabins. And with the owner, Steve Christy, they have a few strange incidents, including a prank where one of them pretends to drown. That's so funny. And an unwelcome visit from the local police. They also receive a visit from Ralph, who again warns them that they are doomed as he rides his bicycle away hilariously. A violent storm closes in on the horizon. Steve leaves the campground to get more supplies. Steve is just, where is he this whole entire movie, man?
I've got some points about Steve later, but he's about damn useless. He goes out for supplies, has a coffee, gets stranded. And then comes back later and gets stabbed off screen. So he's about the most worthless head counselor there is.
Steve has a thing for Alice, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little bit of a thing. Yeah, he tried.
Alice
he should have
was
stuck around for strip Monopoly.
They do play strip Monopoly, and it ends it just ends abruptly.
Yeah, I'll get to that too.
So you get.
What about Ralph putting some miles on that bike? Like,
Dude,
how did he get there on the bike?
Ralph, it was 5 miles from the gas station.
Yeesh.
He's got some killer calves, you know?
Did you see the part where dude pretended to drown, right?
Yes.
And then Annie throws the life preserver out.
Okay.
They are about like 1.5 feet away from the dock. I had to stop the movie,
Yes.
and I was laughing so hard.
I laughed too because they were all working on this. The boat goes out, which is useless as well. They don't even use the boat, but there's 2 of them in the boat, and they boat over to him. And he which one is it? Is it?
It's Ned.
Okay,
he's the goofball guy. Yeah.
Ned is an idiot, and Ned is. I want to say hilarious, but cringy. He's like cringy hilarious.
Yeah, he tries to be the class clown, but he tries too hard.
He pretends to drown and he gets to make out with a girl. So
yeah,
whatever. I guess
like
that
3 seconds.
I guess that was what they did in the 1980s. You know, our parents were just like, man, hey, go pretend to drown, and then they will give you mouth to mouth. You get to make out with them, man. They just
every time.
They just did things differently back then, didn't they? But Alice was like, I don't know if I need to be here. I think I need to go home. Why'd she need to go home?
I think she was just wanting to leave because she was done helping dude with the repairs.
Is that what it was?
Kind of hitting on her.
He's like, he goes, listen, you got good artwork. Did you do these? And you're beautiful. And he would kind of touch her face a little bit, you know? And then he was like, why don't you give it another week? And if you don't die, I mean, if you if you end up liking this, you know what I mean? It will stay the whole summer or something like that. It was something like that.
He looks like I've seen him in a few other choice 70s movies from private selection of mine. I'm just saying, he had the stash and everything.
He had a very nice stash, 70s stash here in 1980. He had some cut off jean shorts, and dude was he's not good at chopping wood or working with that axe, but he was just sitting there. But he had. Anyway, we got to move on with this. Ned follows a strange figure into a cabin as the storm, this is not mentioning. All right, so there's a whole paragraph that should just be like the teenagers doing random stuff and boring the crap out of you, because this is skipping right to the good stuff. They're just doing random things, and you're sitting here like, come on, go, okay, go,
Yeah.
you know?
That's why that synopsis was so long, and I had to cut it down.
Yeah.
That was cutting out that stuff.
There's like, I guess they call it building tension, or I don't know, I don't know. There was this thing back in the 1980s where they would just like Sleepaway Camp has a baseball game that went on for about 12 minutes.
Yeah, I mean the tension's already built. We just saw Annie get cut.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. They could have done something. It's just weird. I don't know. Just a pacing thing. Anyway, after all of that, you're sitting there waiting. Here comes some of the good stuff. You're like, okay, here's some good stuff. Ned follows a strange figure into a cabin. He's like, who are you? Who's that? As the storm hits the camp, Marcy and Jack later enter the cabin to have sex in one of the bunks. That's going to be Kevin Bacon there. Unaware that Ned's dead body's on the top bunk, Marcy leaves to visit the ladies' bathroom, and Jack is attacked by the killer, who is lying under the bed. The murderer drives an arrow right through the bed, and it pierces Jack's throat, killing him. While using the bathroom, Marcy hears a noise by the showers. Thinking it's Jack playing a joke on her, she goes and pulls back a shower curtain, finding nothing. She turns around and finds the unseen killer wielding an axe, and gets that axe right to the face. Yes. These are two really
the face she makes.
These are two.
Goes, like before she even gets hit, she goes, and she's just like already sad about it. It's so stupid looking. If you don't go back and watch that,
I need to go and pause that. I missed that.
It's hilarious. And Kevin Bacon's death, now that one's pretty iconic.
Whew.
The spear coming up through the neck there. Yeah. And so the special effects guy, what's his name?
Savini.
So Savini is under the bed with another one of his helpers, and the little pump for the blood stops working. So he has to blow air in it through his mouth, and that's the splurt that comes up on Kevin Bacon's face. It kind of startles him.
Yeah.
So they saved the shot. I mean, they made it work, but that's awesome. That's how that worked.
It's so practical, you know?
Yeah. You love that practical stuff. I do too.
I do. That looked really good. The blood pooling up, pooling, like P-O-O-L-I, just pulling up just right here. The arrow right through the neck. It was so well done. It's so good. Her axe to the face looked pretty cool too.
Yeah. The post strike. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Her just like sliding down that wall with an axe in her face. That's good. I like that. Bill, Alice, and Brenda play strip Monopoly. I have a good idea. Let's play Monopoly. They go, I hate Monopoly. Not the way I play it. They play in Alice's cabin. Brenda leaves to tend to her cabin and settles into bed. She hears a cry for help and walks outside. She ends up at the archery range and is killed off screen. Bill and Alice go to investigate. After looking around the camp, they find no one and they try to call the police, but the phone lines are cut. Steve makes his way back to the camp with supplies, but when he arrives, he's murdered by an attacker that he seems to know already.
Ooh, suspenseful. And you said it earlier. I did not appreciate the abrupt ending to Monopoly.
Yeah.
Even Jessica was mad. She was like, I thought there was nudity in this thing. We've only seen the other chick. I'm out of here. So she didn't even finish.
That's not true. No, that's not true. Was she? Did she really?
No, but she did watch this film. I could sense that she was as mad as I was that strip Monopoly. We've been married for like 35, 40 years. We know what each other's thinking.
Yeah. So Alice is like, I got to go back to the old. Brenda's like, I got to go back to my cabin. I think I left the windows open because all hell is breaking loose. It is raining until it's not anymore. But it is just pouring down. And then she hears a cry for help. Help me. I thought it's
so weird.
It was creepy. I liked it.
Did you? I didn't care for it. It just sounded too kiddish. And there was no kids there. Yeah. I don't know.
She does end up on the archery range. And you can't help but think of like Sleepaway Camp stole that.
It can't be you. It can't be. It can't be.
But except Sleepaway Camp did it better, I think, because they're on the archery range, and they find themselves on the archery range at the camp, and then that arrow goes right through. And it's a good
Yeah.
practical effect of that arrow going
The
through.
good practical effect, and this one's killed off screen.
Yeah.
So you don't see the arrow kill. You see a guy pinned later to a wall with arrows,
Yeah.
but you don't see the arrow coming up to the person.
Exactly. So when I saw this, the lights coming on at the range, and even Alice says later, like, "Hey, the lights are on at the range out there."
Yeah.
And then they were off. After the lights
Yeah,
go,
smart.
yeah. And so Steve is sitting there. He got some coffee at a diner.
Yeah.
And-
Steve is so useless, dude.
Yeah, Steve is just like, he's coming up. I was like wondering where he was this whole film, and he's just sitting there. He's at the Waffle House downtown, just says diner, but he's drinking coffee and eating, and he's just hitting on this waitress, isn't he?
Yeah, he leaves the teens to die. He flirts with Flo or whoever at the diner.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and just gets killed right away, right off screen. He hitches a ride with a cop. And then the cop has to take a call, and he's like, "Oh, see you later. You got to get out here.
Good luck." Yeah.
Okay.
Like the call was like, 301. We have like 7 people dead in a car wreck over here. Everything's flipped on the side. And he's like, "Okay." And he just like very peacefully drops him off, and he goes, "Bye. I'll see you later, Steve." And then Steve goes, "Good luck." Like people just died back then all the time, man. This is normal.
80s, man.
Yeah, this is normal. And he gets out and he's like, he goes, "Hey, how you doing?" And then he gets killed. So he knew this person. After the lights are going out all over camp, Bill tries to start the generator. Alice is worried. She begins to search for him, only to find that his body is pinned to a door with arrows. Alice flees back to the main cabin and hides. Brenda's corpse is hurled through a window. Alice hears a vehicle outside the cabin and, thinking it to be Steve, runs out to warn him, only to find a middle-aged woman who introduces herself as Mrs. Voorhies, an old friend of the Christys. Miss Voorhies expresses horror at the sight of Brenda's body, but then soon reveals herself to be the mother of the boy who drowned in the lake back in 1957.
And that's crazy. I would immediately put 2 and 2 together, wonder why this lady's still here, and get the hell out of there. But firstly, I love how Alice barricades the door. Do you remember? You remember in Big Lebowski when he's like putting all the stuff up on the door, and then the door opens the other way.
The other way.
Like I was hoping that one. That's all I was thinking about.
Oh, I love it so
good
much.
stuff.
Alice is freaking out. Miss Voorhies
Yeah.
is just calm as a cucumber, just so cool. And she's like, "Hey, listen, I used to be I'm friends of the Christys. I'm here."
Yeah.
She's like, "They're dead inside." She goes, "I'm not scared. I'm not. What are you?" It was just like, Alice is like, "What?
So weird.
What?" But I guess that blue Jeep is like just a very popular model because Steve had the same one, right?
Yeah, that was his Jeep, wasn't it?
No, because remember there was a Jeep that picked up that girl outside of town. So did they have the same car?
Yeah.
Maybe they shared
they
one.
must have.
Maybe they shared one.
Jeeps.
Yeah. I don't know. Crazy. Miss Voorhies blames her son's drowning on the fact that 2 counselors were having sex and were unaware of Jason struggling in the lake. She tells Alice that today happens to be Jason's birthday. That's not good.
You did to him.
And suddenly turns violent, rushing at Alice. But Alice uses a fireplace poker and temporarily knocks Miss Voorhies unconscious. Alice is able to flee, finding Steve and Annie's body in the process. After she comes to Miss Voorhies, returns to chase Alice.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her. Don't let her get away, Mommy.
I won't, Jason. I won't.
Hearing Jason's voice urging her on, Alice is able to hit her on the head with a frying pan, believing her to be dead.
And I gotta say, for someone who took out a whole ass group of older teens and a few adults, Mrs. Voorhees is really having a hell of a time with Alice. She's been trying to kill her for the last like 25 minutes at this point.
My 12-year-old son, who's I don't think he's quite 100 pounds. We're in the swimming pool, and I had to pick him up and toss him, and I was like, "Whew." Man, but Miss Voorhies tossed this grown woman with ropes all around her through a window. Just tossed her through the window. How did she do that?
That's a great question.
She is just swole. But you know what? We'll find out in future movies that her son has crazy strength too. So maybe it just runs in the family.
Yeah, it could. And this is where you see that they stole the Halloween trope where the bodies are fallen.
Yeah.
The New Year's Evil where the body slides down, things like that. All
That's
the bodies
classic.
just happen to pop out.
Yeah, in a good slasher movie, like Chris said, you'll at the end, you'll find the bodies in weird places. You'll open up a door and it'll fall out, and you'll hear, or
Yeah.
you hear like loud like, and just screaming horror. Poor Alice is just, she's getting pimp slapped by Miss Voorhies over here. Like she's throwing like balls of yarn at Miss Voorhies, and Miss Voorhies she's going. Like,
Right.
she's just like, I don't know. It's so funny the way she's like hitting. I don't know. Now at the side of the lake, Alice sits down next to the water, but Miss Voorhees comes rushing out at her with a machete. The machete.
There it is.
Enter the machete into Friday the 13th. All right, there it is. Besting her attacker, Alice gains the upper hand, finally kills Miss Voorhees by decapitating her. Now in shock, Alice gets in a canoe, rows out to the middle of the lake where she falls asleep. In the morning, Alice is asleep in the canoe. Police arrive and they call out to her, and she's awakened. As she sits up, the decomposing body of Jason attacks Alice, pulls her out of the canoe just as she's dragged underwater. The end. Man, that was so freaking good, dude.
Crazy ending.
Oh, wait, sorry. She wakes up in a hospital where a police officer tells her that they pulled her out of the lake and that everyone at the camp, they're dead. And when she asks about Jason, the officer informs her that they never found any boy. Alice replies, then he's still there, and shows.
And he's still there.
And then it shows the lake at peace.
The last cool effect, right? When Mrs. Voorhees gets her head chopped off.
Yes.
Cool effect, right? It was a foam head, and the special effects guy had it attached on his shoulders. So those are his hands when it gets
that's
knocked
awesome.
off her head or whatever. His hands are there, like kind of grasping and stuff like that. So very cool, very good practical effects.
That effect looks so good. And I want to fast forward to Friday the 13th 2, which, warning, if you haven't seen it, don't listen to this. But Alice gets killed pretty quickly in like the first 5 minutes of what? Of the second
I didn't
one.
know that.
Yes, you did, dude. And like she like gets up, she opens up the fridge, and Miss Voorhees' rotting head is in the refrigerator, and then all of a sudden, freaking Jason with a sack on his head kills her with like in 5 minutes. So like what sucks is like you have Alice here, who is a pretty good final girl, whatever.
Final girl,
Yeah, but like they kill her off like in the first 5 minutes of the second movie. We're just like, man, they could have used her, like long running. I don't know, but I guess it's you didn't expect it, and that's what Friday the 13th kind of came to do. Like we'll kill off. We'll kill off anybody,
Right.
We'll kill.
And I did love the whodunit aspect on this one at first, because you don't see the killer, and you don't know the killer is Mrs. Voorhees until the end.
Yeah.
Where she kind of pieces it together, things like that. But this is the 80s. They could have done it better, but whatever. It was pretty good for its time as a whodunit up to that point, I think.
And apparently the script never had the Jason coming out of the lake. And this this was just like added, and I think it was Savini who like kind of suggested that. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that came to be one of the most iconic scenes, ever. And it was a dream sequence, but it kind of spoke to like the future of this franchise and where it was heading. And again, the most iconic. You know what I mean? I mean, like, we're not there yet. It's going to take a couple movies till we get to that, which is so surprising. It was surprising to me when I was a kid, and you and I rented this movie probably back in 1997. I didn't know Jason wasn't even in the first one. I didn't know it was his mom. And that was so, it was very surprising to me that his mom was doing the killing. And it was very surprising to me when he jumped out of the water like that and brought her in. It was like like, so I think it's so cool that I got to experience that like I did not know. And so like that's what makes this movie special. And I can see back in 1980 there wasn't a lot of movies like that. That was a very cool surprise ending. And I love that.
I think so. Dead Meat said that they ripped off the surprise ending from Carrie.
Okay.
So I guess there's a shocking scene like that at the end of Carrie where you think it's all done and this and that, and then it's a big jump scare at the end. I can remember, I think my dad sitting me in front of the TV and he was like, "No, Jason's right there. He's in the tree line." And so I'm like, looking at the TV, and then the Jason comes up and grabs her.
That's
and
cool.
Tormented me for life. So.
Yeah, that's what like, I still have to go to therapy because of that. And back to Psycho, Psycho, it's you think that it's his mom doing it the whole time, but then you find her rotting corpse in the house, and it's him dressing up like his mom and doing the killing and talking to himself, kind of like Miss Voorhies was doing, like Jason was controlling her in that type of way. So you see the Psycho elements as well. Just a cool movie. Again, one of the pillars of horror. And again, they did a lot of things right. They didn't do everything right, but they did a lot of things right, and they set this franchise up for success. And it was really cool revisiting it. It's hilarious. It's got some good quotes in this thing, man. Some good quotes.
Definitely watch it with your friends.
This is great.
Younger, haven't seen it, grab a few friends and go watch this.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Get like we need 2 or 3 Friday the 13th movies and just watch them back to back,
Yeah, absolutely.